We are heading into an election year in Ontario. How is the Ford government doing in Ontario these days?
How do we say okay? When we look at data from my friend Jean-Marc Leger, who heads up Leger Marketing, the latest numbers in the Ontario race has the Progressive Conservatives of Ontario at 34%, the Liberals at 31, NDP at 26. Interestingly, compared to the last election, the Conservatives are down about 6 points. The Liberals are up significantly because they were, I think, at around 20. They were at around 20, so they're up, and the NDP are down a bit. So, what we're seeing is factoring the margin of error or the accuracy for the research, probably a very tight race between the Progressive Conservatives in Ontario, the Ford Conservatives, and the Stephen Del Duca
Mm.
Liberals, and a bit of a disappointing number probably for the New Democrats because last election they're at 34, now they're at 26, and they've got to be probably a little bit disappointed on that front.
So Stephen Del Duca is the new leader of the Liberal Party. How are his personal numbers? How likable is he compared to his party's brand?
Well, according to the Leger marketing stuff, I think his favorability scores are at around 23%, which means there's no political coattails. Why don't we say that?
Hmm.
For Stephen Del Duca. He's basically trailing his party by about 7 or 8 percentage points. This compares to both Ford and Horvath. Ford's favorabilities are higher than party standings at around 40, and Andrea Horvath's favorability ratings are higher than her parties because she's at around 39% favorability
Hmm.
compared to the party's ballot numbers, which are at 26. So no political coattails for Stephen Del Duca. I guess one way to look at it is that there's room for improvement. The
Yeah.
other way to look at it is he's not a boost to the Liberal political fortunes at this particular point
Hmm.
in time.
Well, we've sort of seen one attempt, I guess, at a Hail Mary pass from him, and that was promising electoral reform. Uh, Seems like a very bold move. We saw that before from Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, I believe.
Yes,
Right.
yes. Justin Trudeau, pre 2015, campaigned on electoral reform because obviously our electoral system and democracy was broken.
Hmm.
Um, And then a funny thing happened. He won under the old system, and then all of a sudden, electoral reform hasn't been as much. I won't say it's not a priority, has not been as much of a priority compared to other things. Now, in fairness, the guys had to deal with the pandemic,
Hmm.
right? So he had to deal with Donald Trump and a pandemic, two calamities, why don't we say, that any government, whether conservative or liberal or whatever party it is, would be difficult to deal with. It's understandable how electoral reform has taken a bit of a back seat in the agenda of the government. However, what we've seen is a pattern of behavior, and this isn't liberal, this is just in general. Parties that are not winners talk about electoral reform, and then if they happen to win under the system, all of a sudden, maybe it's not too bad. Let's keep the
Hmm.
system the way it is because, it has kept them in power. The fact of the matter is, if the Liberals had embarked on electoral reform in 2015, they could have lost the 2019 and the 2021 election because we do know that they received less votes than the Conservatives. And any sort of electoral reform, whoever wins the greatest number of votes, that would have been a political advantage for that party, and it wouldn't have helped the Liberals in 2019 and 2021.